I knew where this was too. Anyway. $78, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so the demarcation between the north and south was right about here. So you can see that it's a long, skinny country. And I was right by Quang Ngai. I was 20 miles inland from Quang Ngai, and I worked this area. It's a system of valleys, two sets of valleys, the Shambay and Shamba. And it was a primary route for the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So goods and supplies would go down through Laos and dump into Vietnam through three primary accesses. One of them was right where I was. And again, I was at a little fire base called LZ Crunch. There was no road in or out. All the supplies came in by air. It was pretty typical of forward support bases. And it's an ugly little place to live. It was hot. It was dirty. You were always tired. You worked hard. There are things about it that you can still remember. The smell of it was god awful. And we didn't have bathrooms. There's no hot and cold running water. So you go to the bathroom in an outside toilet, and you'd go into a 55-gallon drum, and every day that mixture had to be burned. So there's about 6 inches of diesel fluid in it, and every day that mixture had to be burned. And obviously you didn't want to make the first sergeant mad, because if you did,
you burn it a couple days in a row.
Exactly. So, I mean, it was just it's an odd way to live. It's like I said, you're always hot, you're always tired, and you're alone. You're essentially alone. So it was, I mean, you might be surrounded by troops, fellow people, but God, it was a very lonely time.
All right. So, one of my questions is like, what is your current age now?
I'm 68.
And then, what was your age when you went into Vietnam?
I got drafted at age 22. I went to Vietnam at 23. I spent a year in training in the States.
Where did you train? Like, what base?
I went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina for basic training. Then I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for advanced individual training in artillery. And then I went to the Shake and Bake School. It's called Artillery Combat Leadership. People who could read maps and do a little bit of math would be put in the school, because by that point in the war, the young E5, the guys who did a lot of the real work of being a soldier, they were getting out of the army as fast as they could, or they were being killed. So they had to replace them. Like I said, if you could do a little math or read a map, you're going to go to this school and you're going to end up in a leadership position. That's what happened to me.
So, could you tell me a little bit more about the Shake and Bake School you went to? Like, what did you experience there?
It was a smaller group, obviously, and we knew that we were all going to be sergeants, and we knew that we were all going to Vietnam. It's a little bit like officer candidate school, so every day you had to break starts, you had to put on a fresh pair of fatigues, and they had to be extremely. The press marks in them had to be exact. So you would, when you put on your pants in the morning, you would actually take a ruler and split the starch apart so that you didn't break that crease in the front. And then we trained on every gun that the U.S. Army has. 105 millimeter guns, 155, 8-inch and 175s. We learned how to lay the guns, which is a transom. It's essentially like being a surveyor. And then you went through, leadership programs. It was, of course, it's the Army's view of leadership, which is do as I say. It was a fairly intense 12-week program, and then they would put you with a training battery so that now you're the sergeant running an entire training battery. And that was...
Do you know what a battery is?
It's the guns. It's
yeah.
There are four guns in a heavy artillery battery. There are 6 guns in a light artillery battery, and so you're training about 200 people, and teaching them how to operate the guns.
All right. Where did you grow up before you went to training?
As a St. Paul kid, I lived in Frogtown.
He doesn't know where Frogtown is.
Okay.
That means nothing to him.
It's right over here,
In one of those suburban. No, they're both suburbanites.
not far from here.
All right. What did you do before the Vietnam War? Like, were you gonna go to college?
I was in college. I got drafted as soon as I got out. I was a music major in college.
Oh, all right. So, did you have any plans for your life before you were deployed?
Anything but the Army. Yeah, I wanted to make my living in music. And obviously the artillery changed that rather dramatically. And after a few days around those big guns, you don't hear that well.
Alright, so you said you were drafted?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was serving in the military part of your family, like have other people? No. So you were the first
I
one?
had no heritage there. No.
Alright. What branch of the service were you in?
Uncle Sam's Mighty Fine Army.
Yeah, just go with Army. Do you know what all that means? Do either of you?
Turn off the recorder for a second. I'll tell you.